Hi, just want to go over the questions in the peer editing guidelines for the argument of fact. This is what I would like you to do as you read each other's rough drafts. So you read the rough draft written by one of your peers, and then using this form, answer the questions. First question is, what is the thesis or claim? That's, of course, beyond important, right? In other words, we have to be able to know what the argument is that is being addressed. Hopefully you can find that argument at the end of the first paragraph, the introduction. Second, and very important, is this truly a claim of fact and not a claim of value, proposal, or definition? So a claim of value would say something is good or bad, right or wrong, right? Rolling Stones are the best band ever. No, the Beatles are the best band ever, right? That's a claim of value. A proposal argues for some sort of change. We need to lower the drinking age to 14, right? That's a proposal. And definition argues the definition of a key word, like the definition of success is making $10 million before you're 21, something like that, right? So we don't want any claims like that. We want to claim a fact, which says that a condition does exist right now, has existed in the past, or will exist in the future. And it's an arguable claim. Look for claims of fact in areas of science, medicine, energy, immigration, anything that can be used basically to talk about an argument of fact is essentially an interpretation of facts. Okay, so when people talk about corona, for example, the coronavirus, they make arguments of fact, typically, as long as they're based in fact. Question 2, does the introduction do the 3 things that it should do? So we've talked about this before. Hook the reader, which is do something to interest the reader, get the reader involved. Introduce the subject and the focus. In other words, what is the reader writing about? Because you can't assume your reader knows what you're writing about. How would they know? Okay. And present that clear thesis that we were talking about. So those are the 3 things that need to happen in the introduction. As you look at the essay, is the MLA format correct? This includes the name block, the proper use of a title, the proper pagination, as well as in-text documentation and the works cited page. Now this may take some time to check this over. I say take an attitude of no forgiveness, and here's the reason why. A lot of students look at rough draft and say, oh, it's just a rough draft. They'll fix that problem, right? They'll fix it. But you're assuming they know it's a problem. So you need to say, hey, it looks to me like you're using APA format because you have these years in parentheses all over the place, and that's not right for MLA. Make sure that you indicate that. Don't just say, oh, they'll fix it, because they may not. Are the minimal standards met? On this assignment were at least 1,000 words, at least 4 sources cited in text, 3 of which must originate in print, citations from at least 2 scholarly works. And remember that scholarly works would refer to academic journals, right? University press books, or even dissertations. At least 1 figure or table. That's important, right? That's our special little fun thing that we do in this paper, is to have a figure or a table. Make sure you check out the handout, or not the handout, but the link on how to do that. And the word count. Right, so that you and I, everybody knows that you've met the minimum requirements. Please remember that an anthology counts as only 1 source, no matter how many articles are taken from it. So an anthology is a collection of articles. So if you get a book on the death penalty and it contains a whole bunch of articles on the death penalty, that's just 1 source. Okay. And general reference works like dictionaries and encyclopedia do not count as sources. Now, again, you can use them. Don't get me wrong, you can use them, but don't count those towards your minimum. And this is a good time for me to repeat that minimums are not maximums. You can always have more. Some people think, oh, I can only do 4 sources. No, you can have 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. You can have a lot more than 1,000 words as long as you're holding together your article, your essay, right? Don't feel that you're bound by the minimum and prevented from doing more. You are not prevented from doing more. Is there a concession? Now, when you have an argument, remember that means there must be at least two sides, otherwise there is no argument, right? So the concession is the acknowledgement of the other side. What does the other side say? What does the other side put forward in their support? Okay, and a concession can be done in a variety of ways. It can be intermixed throughout the paper, but probably most helpful is when it's a single paragraph on its own. And then are sufficient rebuttal arguments included? Rebuttal arguments are your response to them. They said this, how do you respond to them? There are basically three ways you can respond. You can say, yes, that's true, but there are other things that are more important or other things that need to be looked at. Or no, that's not true. I have the facts that actually prove that you're wrong. Or the point they're making is irrelevant. They're relying on emotional appeals, or they're cherry picking their examples, what have you. Question 6 is really important for an argument of fact. Is there sufficient data? In other words, do we have enough? Now, it's impossible for me to say in a broad way what is enough data, right? That just goes to the actual essay that you're writing. What do you need to prove your case? But keep that in mind. Is the factual evidence that you present accurate, recent, typical? Are the authorities, as far as you can tell, reliable? In other words, we want to dig a little deeper than maybe we did in English 101 to make sure that what we're using, what we're getting, is solid material, solid evidence. Is it clear what is fact and what is inference or interpretation? In other words, is the data properly analyzed? A lot of times people tend to think that, oh, I presented this fact, now it's obvious. Well, no, it's not. So you have to interpret the facts. You have to analyze the facts. You have to show why the facts are persuasive to your point of view. Now, question 8 is the much questioned crystalline word. What is the crystalline word or phrase of the paper? That is, if you had to boil an essay down to its essence, what would it be? So the comparison that I like to use is with coffee. Right, instant coffee is basically crystallized coffee, right? You take all the water out and you reduce that coffee down to its bare essence, right? Whatever is in that little jar. And then you add boiling water later and voila, you have coffee. Actually, it's terrible, but whatever. But the crystalline word of the paper might be a word that appears with great frequency. It might be a word that appears maybe only once, but it's the key word, it's the key concept, it's the key idea that runs through the whole essay. So in other words, if you had to take that 1,000-word essay and you had to reduce it down to a single word, what would that word be? Question 9 is kind of an easy question. Does the paper avoid the first and second person narrative? I think, I feel, I believe, in my opinion. That's all that first person stuff. Get rid of it. Or the second person, which is the you, which appeals directly to the reader, which again, in the kind of writing that we're doing here, is inappropriate. Okay, we're going with the third person academic point of view. And are there many grammatical, mechanical, or spelling errors? You know, English 205 isn't really a class about punctuation or grammar. By the same token, if your punctuation and grammar is a mess, then nobody's going to be able to read what you're writing very well. And we don't want that, right? I have a colleague who I'm going to steal from. He likes to call this spinach in your teeth, right? Those spelling errors, the grammar errors, punctuation errors, they may not affect the meaning of the material, although sometimes if they're bad enough, they actually can because we don't know what you're saying. But aside from that, it's like talking to somebody who's got spinach in their teeth. You hear what they're saying, but all you're focused on is that damn spinach. It's like, ew, gross, disgusting. Brush your teeth, get some floss. That's the equivalent in essay writing. So this is what the peer editing guidelines are about for the argument of fact. So please use this as you read through the essays that are now in your group file, fill out one for each student. So write that student's, no, I'm sorry, write your name here, editor's name, that would be you, and then the name of the student whose work you're looking at will go right here. And then you can fill in underneath. Okay? Good luck.